This isn't just another Saturday for Matt Wells. Whether he says it or not, it's a redemption game against the school that fired him. And he's not just coaching Kansas State's offense in this one, he's coaching for his story.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rao, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my Everydayers. Got a loaded episode for you today. Of course, we're going to make our final predictions for the game against Texas Tech on Saturday. We'll end the show with that. I got some conversations that I want to get into about the wide receiver core, how I think this is the toughest task for the offensive line. But most importantly, I think this is a huge redemption game for Matt Wells, being the former coach of Texas Tech, and how we might view him for the rest of the way this season and beyond as the offensive coordinator for K-State. Hit that subscribe button like you always do. You guys are building this community. It's so great. I really appreciate it and help make this show so amazing, covering the Kansas State Wildcats like no one else. Your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. This episode's brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. It's going to be an exciting game. I am really excited for it. And Matt Wells has said all the right things this week, because I think he's on full display. The spotlight is on Matt Wells and how this offense will perform against one of the toughest defenses, let alone in the Big 12, but in college football. I can't stress this enough. This game feels crazy. It feels really good after the Sunflower Showdown. Fans, everydayers know about the hangover curse that Kansas State has. They have to get rid of that hangover. That has to not happen, of course. Something that has been haunting Chris Klieman and his coaching staffs over the years after winning 17 in a row against KU. But I think this one means a lot for Matt Wells on the offensive side. And what I've seen from him on Thursday in his presser, that he's calm. He seems focused. And he's not ready to pretend that emotions don't exist as well. I think that he said all the right things. I think that you can tell that this matchup does mean something. There's no doubt about that. There's no reason to ignore it. But when he was asked if he feels any personal emotion about facing Texas Tech, he admitted, he said, quote, "Yeah, there is. You're not living if you pretend there isn't. But I'm not defined by that." And I really appreciate that. I think that's a very strong message to take from this one, that he's not defining himself as a coach who went to the Big 12 for the first time around. It didn't work out at Texas Tech and then was fired and then decided that that was going to be how he was going to be defined for the rest of his life or of his college career, because he had a very successful coaching career before Texas Tech. Let's remember that he was 44-34 at Utah State, gave him multiple times getting to the top of the Mountain West Conference, and has great players in the NFL, including Jordan Love, the starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, as somebody who he coached in his resume. That resume got him the job at Texas Tech. It just didn't work out. And it might be recency biased. It might be the fact of what you're seeing now in the eyes of how the national media is setting up Texas Tech as them being these big spenders. And don't get me wrong, they are, but I don't think it's as egregious as a lot of people are actually saying. I think Texas Tech is just doing the adapt or die kind of context in this new world of college athletics in this NIL era. However, when he was at Texas Tech in 2019, 2020, and then 2021, before he was fired in the middle of the season, he went 13-17. He was 4-8 in 2019, 4-6 in 2020, and 5-3 in 2021. Fired after 8 games, and he was fired after a home game in Lubbock against Kansas State. So this game absolutely means something for Matt Wells. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. There's definitely going to be things. But the fact that he's not defined how it ended in Lubbock, he's defined how he builds what's next in Manhattan. And I think so far he's done an excellent job in doing that. Last year, we saw great improvements from Avery Johnson. We continue to see great improvements from Avery Johnson this year. One of the biggest narratives we get to continue to discuss about Avery Johnson is how he has been a lot more safe with the football. almost to a point to where we've got frustrated to it because he wasn't running enough early in the season. But now he's doing a great job finding himself more as a pocket pro passer and still has the ability to get outside and scramble and make big plays. Matt Wells has a lot to do with that, making him make more decisions, maybe the decision to go deep. And that's helped Jace Brown be a deep threat even more in the game. Matt Wells has a lot to do with the success of Avery Johnson, Jace Brown, and this offense, whether you like some of his play calling or not so far this season. And I have been critical. I'm not going to take myself off this pedestal here and say I haven't been, because I absolutely have been critical of Matt Wells this season, much like everybody else across Kansas State media, and maybe rightfully so. But I do think you have to acknowledge where he has shined. And I think over the last couple of weeks, Matt Wells, Joe Klannerman, Chris Klieman have really turned this team around. And I'd love to see it happen once again on Saturday against Texas Tech, not only for the fact that you get to spoil college football playoff chances for Texas Tech, not only do you get to put them behind you in the Big 12 standings after them being seen as a national contender, not just a Big 12 contender, not only because you can continue your ride to a potential trip to Arlington, but because of the redemption story for Matt Wells. And here's the irony here. The quarterback that he once recruited and signed is Behren Morton, the quarterback that is going to try and ruin his day on the other side of the football for the Red Raiders. Wells said he recruited Morton for 2 years. I mean, ever since he was a junior, still calls him West Texas tough. I mean, as a local kid, around the Lubbock area, said he respects the kid, but this weekend he's game planning to beat him. Of course he is. That's absolutely his job. And, said he didn't watch a lot of tape this week on Morton because it's not his job to plan against Morton. His job is to win on the offensive side for himself with Kansas State. But there's something poetic about it with Matt Wells and the redemption story. It feels really good, and almost to the point that you're asking for a letdown, and you don't want that to happen. But Wells built part of a foundation for what Texas Tech is today. And although it seems really good where they're sitting right now, all the money coming in and all of the momentum, if you want to call it, and the team looking a lot better than what they've had in the past, the recruiting, the culture, even Behren Morton's early development, you have to give credit to Matt Wells there. I think you do have to give him some credit. And I think he made it a really good point to bring up that he knows what it felt like before, what Texas Tech looked like when he got there, and he knows what it looked like when he left. And without saying it, you could read the writing on the wall. You could read behind it. He left that place better than he left. He left that place better than where he found it. And I think that's important too. And if you're listening to this and you're a Texas Tech fan getting ready for the game on Saturday, I wish you luck, by the way. But also, I think you have to say, yeah, we respect what Matt Wells did. Didn't give you much success in the win-loss record, but got you in the right direction to where you are right now, being a potential powerhouse for the years to come inside of college football. He also said this week, unless you live by a scoreboard, you can't let the past define you. That's not just coach talk. That's a man who's been humbled, learned, respected, rebuilt, and what he's done so far at Kansas State. I mean, again, like it or hate it with this play calling so far this year, I think he's done an excellent job building up somebody who many see as could be left as one of the best quarterbacks in Kansas State history in Avery Johnson. This sets it up perfectly. And the Wildcats are 8-0 in the last 8 games against Texas Tech. They've won 12 of the last 13 games against Texas Tech. Texas Tech hasn't won a game in Manhattan since 2008. A win here would be number 9. And for Wells, I think that's a personal exclamation point if he can be a part and maybe even be a big factor in winning that 9th straight game. But for redemption to mean anything, Kansas State's offense has to stand tall. And it's going to be against the best defense they faced all year by a mile. We'll dig into that next, right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, this episode is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. These are the moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move cultures, and keep moving the game forward. We could talk about Matt Wells and his redemption. I'm going to save that hopefully for this ad read next week, because a redemption for Matt Wells would be huge on Saturday. This week that moved the game, this moment that moved the game forward, though, I got to go with Jace Brown. I have to go with Jace Brown. What he did in the Sunflower Showdown, his 4 receptions, 160 yards, his 1 touchdown, death taxes, big play Jace, like it always has been, just continues to do what needs to be done for Kansas State's offense. So, when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Chris Klieman called it their toughest task yet, and Matt Wells flat out said that this is the best defensive line we've seen. It's not even close, and they're absolutely right. This Texas Tech defense is insane. I mean, it's not an exaggeration. I think Texas Tech's front's built like an SEC unit when you're talking about those big guys, and most of these guys in the SEC probably were recruited. Or excuse me, most of these guys by Texas Tech were probably recruited by SEC foes. And for example, a guy like David Bailey, who we even put out a show early in the season talking about when he hit the transfer portal, could he wind up in Kansas State, even though there was no rumblings, just how good he could be for Kansas State. I mean, it's a long, strong two-gap monsters inside, the edge rushers who can ruin a drive in one play. This is the type of team that you don't want to play. But eventually, of course, you have to if you want to prove that you can run with the big boys. Texas Tech is in category of big boys, no doubt about it. And Wells said it bluntly. He said those 4 are the best we've seen, and the 3 linebackers behind them make them go. He's talking about guys like Jacob Rodriguez, who Chris Klieman even mentioned is one of the best linebackers in the country. Didn't say conference, said country. And I think he's right. I think we're going to see him easily play on Sundays. I think he might be one of the earlier linebackers taken in the NFL draft. He has the tools, the tangibles to be a top linebacker, not just one that makes the league, a top linebacker for years to come inside the league. And we've seen, our good buddy Chris Level asked the question on Locked On Texas Tech in the crossover about maybe him being compared to a legend at Texas Tech and Zach Thomas. And that's how good you're about to play a defense on Saturday. Matt Wells even praised the technique, saying the way they punched out the ball, strain on every snap, and swarm to the football. He said that's coached. That's absolute coached, and gave a shout out to the coaching staff. Matt Wells did that. And that goes back to what we talked about on yesterday's episode about Kansas State's own mob mentality, man on ball. Texas Tech has their own mentality when it comes to this. This is going to be one of those games, if it gets close, and I think this game is going to stay close. I'll give you my predictions here in just a moment here. I think whoever wins this turnover battle is going to be the one that comes on top. And so far over the last couple of weeks, Kansas State has done a good job at doing that, but they haven't played a defense like Texas Tech. So let's be real. This isn't a week where you can just run it down their throats. Wells said it himself. Don't look at the stats. Nobody's run well on them. And without Dylan Edwards, which is a huge blow, Joe Jackson is going to have to step up. He did well against TCU, got a career high over 100 yards, but wasn't the greatest against Kansas. Now, he didn't have to be. The offense didn't have to shine because the defense got the 4 takeaways. They got the offense back in great field position. The numbers, the box score didn't have to be super, saturated like it was in weeks prior. It's going to have to be that way against Texas Tech. You're going to need both to be true, both things. When you look at the fact of what needs to go right, everything has to go right against Texas Tech. You're going to need the takeaways, and you're going to need that offensive line of K-State to be bullies against the defensive front that is being seen and talked about as one of the nation's best. If I'm Kansas State's offensive line, that's got to be bulletin board material. I mean, hang that up in the locker of every single offensive lineman in Manhattan on K-State's roster and say, they have they're not being seen. They don't respect us. And in the run blocking department, it makes a lot of sense why they might not be respected, because the Kansas State offensive line hasn't been great in the run blocking department over the entire season. They've been great on the pass blocking side. And as long as they don't become one-dimensional, I think that remains true. I think they will be a very good team in the pass blocking department on Saturday. The biggest question is, can they push the trenches of Texas Tech farther than 1.5 yards off the line of scrimmage to let some space for a guy like Joe Jackson, Devon Rice, Avery Johnson breathe and get some room? We saw it against Arizona. They didn't do that. We saw it against another physical team like Army. They didn't do that. We saw it improve against TCU. We saw it decently okay against Kansas. How can it be against Texas Tech. That'll be the biggest question. So what's the plan here? I think you got to have quick throws. You got to neutralize the rush, right? You got to find a way to continue to be strong in the rushing game. You can't be one-dimensional. I think Avery Johnson has to be very successful in play action just to cause a slight hesitation. They have to use motion formations to confuse the linebackers, which is a very hard thing to do. Matt Wells even said it that they probably are, but he can't find a time where they're out of position. So even though that might be true at some point in time, the coaching staff said they haven't found it yet. So that's just a huge shout out and the respect to the linebacking core of Texas Tech. And you got to give Avery Johnson clean reads and simple decisions. He hasn't given up turnovers this season, but doesn't mean that can't happen. You have to even almost assume that it's inevitable that it's going to happen. You don't want to give him those moments to make that work. You want to make sure he has clean reads, simple decisions against a tough defense like Texas Tech. This game is going to be about rhythm and trust. I said it yesterday on the episode. We were kind of talking about Baron Morton. The same thing rings true for K-State's offense. Rhythm and trust is going to be the key thing in this game. Avery can't sit in the pocket too long. This defense is too impressive, and they won't give him those opportunities to do so. Tech's pressure will close in fast, especially in this offensive line, who could be seen as a vulnerability, especially in the run department. I think they've done a great job in the passing game. Don't let that actually be a thing that we have to worry about. Don't let that be one-dimensional. Don't let that be a concern. That means you have to trust in the protection, though. You have to trust in play calls, whether you agree so or not, fans. Matt Wells' play calls, you got to trust it, and you have to trust the process that's been building since this new mini fall camp that Chris Klieman and his coaching staff brought in after the Arizona loss, after the first bye, something they didn't even plan for UCF for. They just went back to the basics, and it's worked out really good. The offensive line seems healthier now, too. Chris Klieman said a guy like Sam Heck is playing like one of the best centers in the country, and I think he's right. JB Nelson getting back there, Terrence Enos getting back, helping spread the reps out, keeping everyone fresh. That will be important on Saturday against one of the toughest defensive lines in the country. So the path is there. It's absolutely there, folks, but it's narrow. If the Wildcats stay ahead of the sticks, if they don't have third and long to where you don't have to get yourself into a sticky situation in the play calling, I think you're in a good spot. If you can keep Avery Johnson clean, you limit those forced third and longs, as I mentioned, and hang in this game for all 4 quarters, you have a very good shot at being in national headlines come Saturday afternoon because Kansas State upsets ranked Texas Tech, ruining college football playoff hopes for the team that spent all the money in the portal. You know what the headlines are going to be, right? I don't agree with that for say, but you know what those headlines are going to be 100%. And when the pocket holds, there are going to be some young playmakers, in my opinion, to have the take over, especially a tight end who's becoming Avery's possibly new favorite weapon. I think that's a perfect time to talk about that. And of course, my predictions next, right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, it's almost the weekend, and it's time to crown and look back at this week's MVP on Who Delivered. Powered by DoorDash, just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streak. Saving more time every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. I said players, not player, because I'm giving the entire Who Delivered MVP on the Kansas State defense last week in the Sunflower Showdown against KU. 4 takeaways, season high. If you had to give it to one person, you probably shout out Desmond Purnell as he continues to shine with his leading 9 tackles, 1 sack. But absolutely a great win by the entire defensive unit. That has to continue this week. So they absolutely delivered when it mattered most. And just like the K-State defense, they delivered for them. DoorDash delivers you on Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, you stack it up all season, and you can save $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. So if you order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms do apply. Promo period is through 11/18. This episode of Locked On Kansas State is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better time to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. You name it, FanDuel's got it. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at bigger payouts. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team makes a late push. It's not basketball, but I don't know if you saw it. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 has his Big 12 best bets over on his YouTube page. It was 4-1 last week, so you can check that one out as well. Right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Well, it's taken time, but the next wave of Kansas State playmakers, in my opinion, I think are here. And it starts, of course, with Lincoln Cure. Chris Klieman lit it up. He really lit up, I should say, when talking about true freshman tight end Lincoln Cure this week. He said Cure's first catch of the game against KU, that crossing route early against Kansas, wasn't a play he could have had made 4 weeks ago. And in Kleiman's words, he said he attacked the ball, ran away from the defender, and I don't think he could have done that a month ago with that confidence. That's huge development right there. And of course, he was injured early in the season. He finally got his chance to shine a little bit. Haven't seen him make a touchdown pass or catch yet. Did try to make a touchdown pass, but that was intercepted. You know, there's a lot of really fun things to see from Lincoln Cure, but his development, his talent level is huge. I mean, his radius, his height, his size, he's just an amazing athlete. And I think we are seeing his development happen in real time. And it matters this week. The reason I bring it up is because Tech's linebackers are elite at punching the ball out, at disguising coverage. The tight ends and receivers have to be reliable when Avery Johnson is forced to get the ball out quick, make those quick decisions, something that I think that they're going to do on Saturday. That's where chemistry between a guy like Lincoln Cure, who has to find mismatches against a tough Texas Tech defense, and of course, his favorite receiver at the moment in Jace Brown, those growing connections with Cure and Brown can separate K-State from the rest of Tech's opponents. We bring up Jared Bradley as well, a former Texas Tech wide receiver. You got to think he's going to want a little bit of revenge and a little bit of the last say to get the win over the Red Raiders as well. Wells also mentioned, Matt Wells, that the downfield passing game is much more improved this year. Avery's throwing the ball better downfield. That was a big offseason focus. You can tell that was a big offseason focus, something that was almost frustrating early in the season. Feels like that's worked out now after, finally getting that taken care of. And especially K-State, they're not afraid to take those deep shots early. And we've seen that happen multiple times. Would not shock me if they try to do it again this Saturday. They're going to have to take shots. They're going to have to be aggressive at times to shock the system in Texas Tech. If they get monotonous, if they get into a type of system that the Texas Tech defense can figure out, then you're probably going to punt the ball more than you hope, especially with Jace Brown, Jared Tibbs. You got to find a way to test these safeties at Texas Tech and keep them honest. You got to do that. You got to make sure you can find a way to keep them out of the box. That helps the run game stay strong, and being able to do those deep threats should be able to do that, of course, with play action from Avery Johnson as well. The heart of this offense is rhythm, though. I keep bringing it up. It's rhythm and timing. It's not chaos. If Wells calls a clean game, and I think we've seen that happen this year, hasn't been, some of them haven't been great on the report card, but I think we have seen some clean games from Matt Wells, especially lately. I think there's room for it to be perfect, though. Avery stays calm. The Wildcat finishes drives. This can be absolutely a fourth quarter fight. And that's where I'm going with my prediction right now here on Locked On Kansas State. Again, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, your predictions. Drop them here. I want your predictions on the score. Give me your MVP of the game, maybe a bold take as well. But I'm going right here. My bold take is my prediction. Kansas State is going to upset Texas Tech. I'm going Kansas State 27, Texas Tech 24. I think Wells gets his redemption. I think Avery makes the right plays when it counts. I think the Wildcats extend the streak to 9 straight wins over the Red Raiders. And I think you ruin the chances of a team who the national media is going to talk about all the money they spent for no reason whatsoever, because K-State took care of business in Manhattan. And that streak of not winning in Manhattan since 2008 continues on yet again for the second week in a row. No hangover for Kansas State. I think Harley Day takes care of that. I think Kansas State is about to prove a lot of people wrong, that loss against Army, that slow start against FCS opponents, that slow start in Dublin is just is a completely different season. They're looking completely different after that new fall mini camp after the Arizona loss, and they're going to continue to ride it down the wire and finally potentially make themselves into Arlington. All of that happens on Saturday, 27-24. It's going to be a close matchup. It's going to be very close. That's why I have it a 3-point here. So if you're playing it, take K-State with the points, take K-State money line, whatever you want to play. That's what I would do on this one. I'm going 51 points, 27-24 here. I think that would be the under, if I remember correctly, looking at our friends from FanDuel. So you take that as you will as well. So for Kansas State, this game isn't about proving they can hang. I don't think that's what the case is. I think it's about showing they can win the tough ones again. You go back to the Baylor game. They lost a really close matchup. They won TCU. They beat UCF. They beat KU. This is the game. There was 2 games that were circled on the map this season. It was Baylor. It was Texas Tech heading into the year. A lot of people thought Baylor was going to be a lot better than they were. A lot of people thought Kansas State was going to be a lot better than they were. Texas Tech was a wild card. They're shining and proving that they have the talent to get themselves to the college football playoffs. Kansas State can change the narrative to all of that in one 60-minute game on Saturday afternoon, 2:30 Central Time on Fox, Bill Snyder Family Stadium. The narrative is about to change. That's the kind of progress that defines programs and rewrites stories, especially for a guy like Matt Wells. Let me know your thoughts in the comment description below. We will be back here on Saturday afternoon reacting to the show. We also have an exhibition basketball game, K-State men's basketball finishing their final exhibition. We'll get a reaction on that. I'm going to try and drop that on Friday evening, so you probably get an extra episode here in the feed as well. So lots of stuff to cover here on Locked On Kansas State. It's going to be a huge November. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, the bell notification. If you're listening in audio, I thank you so much. Rate 5 stars wherever you're listening. We'll be back here very soon to break down hopefully an upset win from Kansas State over Texas Tech. Please like the video, please subscribe, and we'll see you back here next time, right here on Locked On Kansas State.